That morning, Harper Sullivan was organizing her notes for a marketing strategy meeting at her downtown Austin office when her phone buzzed. A message from her mother, Diane, lit up the screen. She opened it casually, but as her eyes scanned the words, the floor beneath her seemed to shift. "We've changed all the locks and the gate code. We no longer trust you. No explanation. No warning. Just one sentence, cold, final, and unmistakably intentional." Harper froze in her small apartment, heart hammering in her chest. She'd grown used to being the second choice behind her younger sister Tiffany, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't being ignored at dinner. This was being locked out of her own family's life. And more than that, out of the very house she'd been paying the $5,600 mortgage for every month for 2 whole years. No contract, no ownership. Just a fragile belief that her sacrifice would someday be acknowledged. Her fingers moved across the screen, typing with eerie calm. "Understood. Very smart. But I think you overlooked one thing." She stopped there. No explanation. Let it mirror what they had done to her, one-sided, cold, and closed. Let the consequences speak for themselves. Less than a minute later, her boyfriend Logan called. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Harper didn't remember what she said. All she knew was that when her head fell to her desk, tears came silently. Harper wasn't someone who broke easily. She was the kind of woman who could lead a national marketing campaign, manage a PR crisis in 24 hours flat. But she had never prepared for this, a betrayal so intimate it came with her mother's name on it. 2 years ago, Harper had agreed to take over the mortgage to save the family's home in Maple Ridge after her parents Gregory and Diane nearly lost it to foreclosure. They cried, they apologized, they promised they'd pay her back. But for 2 years, no one mentioned repayment again. And now they had locked her out so they could hand the house to Tiffany and her husband Kyle, 2 people who had never held themselves accountable for anything. That text wasn't just cruel. It was proof. Proof that to her family, Harper wasn't a daughter, she was a wallet, a financial fallback, a disposable asset. But this time, Harper knew something had changed. This time she wouldn't keep paying for anything. Not for the house, not for approval, and certainly not with her dignity. Even before Harper Sullivan understood the concept of fairness, she had already learned a painful truth: not all children are loved the same. Growing up in their white 2-story home in Maple Ridge, Harper recognized early where she stood in the Sullivan family hierarchy. As the eldest daughter, she was expected to be independent, low maintenance, and the responsible one. Meanwhile, her younger sister Tiffany, 4 years her junior, was treated like royalty. The birthday parties said it all. Tiffany's birthdays were full-blown events, balloons, custom cakes, and mountains of presents. Harper's, on the other hand, were modest dinners with a grocery store cake and a few practical gifts like new socks or a set of textbooks. Once Harper had asked her mother why things were so different. "You're stronger, honey. You don't need as much," Diane had replied, as if that explained everything. Harper tried her best to shine. She worked hard in school, earned scholarships, and made it to college on her own merit. But every time she brought home an accomplishment, the response was lukewarm at best. A polite nod. A distracted good job. Tiffany, on the other hand, barely had to try. If she passed a tough class, there were celebrations. If she lost a job, it was everyone else's responsibility to help her back on her feet. Her parents always had excuses. "Tiffany just needs more support. You're already gifted, Harper." And so Harper grew up playing the role of the easy daughter, the one who never asked for too much, the one who always understood. But deep down, she began to feel like a ghost in her own home, present, contributing, but never fully seen. Tiffany was different in every way. She was pretty outgoing, but lacked perseverance. She switched jobs constantly, and every time life got hard, their parents rushed to rescue her. Harper had once mistaken it for love, but over time she realized it was indulgence, blind enabling indulgence, and she was the one paying for it. When their grandparents passed away and left the family home equally to all, Harper dared to hope. Maybe this would be the moment her contributions would finally be recognized. But even as the only one financially stable enough to save the house, she was still just the one footing the bill, not someone with a real say. From childhood, she'd grown used to working behind the scenes, helping others succeed while keeping herself invisible. But that invisibility came with a price, the gradual erosion of her belief that she was worthy of love just for being herself. And now, locked out of the home she'd sacrificed so much to save, the weight of those memories returned like a flood. It wasn't just about one cold-hearted text message. It was about a childhood of being overlooked, compressed into a single painful moment. Harper remembered that night vividly, a Sunday dinner that at first seemed just like any other. At the family home in Maple Ridge, her mother Diane had made pot roast, Harper's childhood favorite. Her father Gregory was unusually quiet throughout the meal. It wasn't until Tiffany started complaining about how high her apartment rent was that he finally cleared his throat. "We're in financial trouble," he said, eyes avoiding Harper's. "The bank is pressuring us over the mortgage. If we can't figure something out in 3 months, they'll foreclose." Harper put down her fork, the food suddenly tasteless in her mouth. That house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was the last tangible link to her grandparents, the only people in her family who had ever treated her with fairness. "I'll help," she said without hesitation. "I can take over the mortgage payments until you're back on your feet." Her mother broke down in tears. Her father nodded with gratitude, but Harper couldn't shake the feeling that he'd expected this all along. There was no surprise on their faces, only relief. From that night on, Harper stepped into a new role, the provider. She canceled her plans to buy a condo in Austin, cut back on personal expenses, and took on weekend consulting gigs to cover the $5,600 monthly mortgage. No one mentioned a contract. No one offered to add her name to the deed. Because in their eyes, Harper wasn't a co-owner. She was the rescue plan. She told herself, "It's only temporary. Once they're stable again, I'll step back." But the months blurred together into the same pattern. Tiffany lost another job, their parents avoided money talk, and Harper kept paying. Every Sunday night, she'd drive to Maple Ridge, sit at the dinner table, and listen to Tiffany ramble about her chaotic life. Meanwhile, Harper, who had just closed a multi-million-dollar marketing deal, barely got a nod in return. Her best friend Ava had enough. "You're paying for a house you don't live in," Harper Ava said bluntly, "and they treat you like a walking ATM." "It's family," Harper replied, but even she was growing tired of using that excuse. Harper didn't know what she was building anymore. A home? A relationship? Or just a wall between gratitude and exploitation? Still, she kept going because it was the only thread she had left connecting her to the house, to her childhood, and to the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, if she gave enough, loved enough, they'd finally see her worth. Harper began to sense something was off sometime in mid-spring last year. The familiar Sunday dinners at the family home in Maple Ridge had started to lose their warmth, not because of the food or the weather, but because the atmosphere inside the house had changed. There was a kind of silence that didn't come from a lack of words, but from the way people avoided eye contact and gave her only half-hearted nods. Her mother Diane and her sister Tiffany had taken to whispering in the kitchen more often, their glances shifting toward Harper and then quickly away when she entered the room. Once she overheard, "Just let her keep thinking that," before their voices dropped to nothing. When she asked about it, Diane only smiled and said, "Just girl talk, sweetie. Nothing important." Harper wanted to believe that. But in her gut, she felt a familiar twinge, an instinct sharpened through a childhood of always being second best. It was the same feeling that had kept her emotionally afloat for years, and now it was sounding the alarm. One evening, as Harper was washing dishes after dinner, she caught sight of her father Gregory handing Tiffany a thick envelope. They spoke quietly, but Harper caught fragments words like transfer of ownership and bank documents. That wasn't casual conversation. That was planning. After that, Harper started noticing more. Tiffany was at the house more often, even staying overnight. She began bringing personal items. Her wedding photo appeared on a shelf in the living room, and unfamiliar shoeboxes took up space in the front hall closet. Each small sign was like a knock on the door of Harper's awareness. Something was shifting, and she wasn't being included. The house is changing hands. Harper thought, her chest tightening. Even Logan, her boyfriend, noticed. "I don't like how they look at you," he said one night as Harper returned home with a weary expression. "Like you're a guest in a place you're paying for." Harper gave a half smile, part denial, part dread. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, didn't want to be that person overly sensitive or dramatic. But deep down, something in her had started to fracture. Whatever was happening, she wasn't meant to be part of it. The realization didn't strike all at once. It came in pieces, a word here, a glance there, a pattern slowly revealing itself. Harper continued making the mortgage payments. She still drove out to Maple Ridge every weekend. But inside, something was shifting. Faith was cracking. That Sunday evening, Harper headed to her parents' house with a heavier heart than usual. She had grown used to the uneven family dinners, the Tiffany-centered conversations, the sensation of being invisible inside the very house she paid for. But that day, something told her to brace herself. She brought a bottle of red wine and a strawberry tart from the bakery her mother once claimed to love, though Harper suspected her gestures hadn't meant much in a long time. Dinner unfolded predictably. Tiffany went on about a new pottery class. Kyle nodded along like everything in life was effortless, and Harper shared updates on a major product campaign she was leading at work. The response: a couple of nods and a half-hearted, "That's great, honey." After the meal, they moved to the living room for coffee. That's when things shifted. Gregory, her father, cleared his throat and glanced at Diane. Her mother reached over and squeezed Tiffany's hand, eyes bright. "We have some exciting news," she said. "Tiffany and Kyle will be moving in with us." Harper blinked. "You mean permanently?" "What about their apartment?" "Their lease ends this month," Diane replied smoothly. "And this house is too big for just your father and me. It makes financial sense." Harper's eyes moved from Tiffany to Kyle, both trying hard to look innocent. "So, will they be helping with the mortgage, since I'm still covering the full amount?" A heavy silence dropped like a stone. Gregory shifted in his seat. Diane stared into her coffee cup as if the answer might be floating inside it. "You're doing so well in the city, sweetheart," Diane finally said. "You don't need this house. Tiffany's always been so emotionally attached to it. We think she deserves to have it." Harper felt the ground drop beneath her. Over $130,000 paid. A condo sacrificed. Weekends spent working. And now this. The house belonged to someone who had never paid a dime. "Oh, please," Tiffany scoffed. "It's not like you're suffering. I'm the one who needs stability." Harper stood slowly. Her voice was calm but cold. "I think I'm going to leave now." "Of course," Tiffany muttered. "Whenever things don't go your way, you just walk out." Harper paused at the doorway. "No, Tiffany. What I've done is stay far longer than my dignity should have allowed, but not anymore. Silence only enables injustice. And I won't be silent for you." That night, Harper returned to her apartment in Austin without a word. She didn't turn on the usual music. She didn't flip on the foyer lights. Every sound felt unnecessary. She just sat down and listened to the rhythm of her own heartbeat, rapid, hollow, and aching. Logan sat beside her on the couch, saying nothing. He simply placed his hand gently on her shoulder, a quiet reminder, "I'm here." After a few minutes, Harper murmured, "They gave the house to Tiffany." Not even a thank you. Logan didn't look surprised. He'd seen this coming for a long time, but he knew Harper had to arrive at that realization on her own. So he asked softly, "What are you going to do now?" She didn't answer right away. Silence stretched out between them, thick but not empty. Then something clicked in her mind, not loud, not dramatic, but decisive. She rose from the couch, walked to the bedroom, and returned with her laptop. She opened her online banking account and navigated to the automatic payment section. There it was. Recipient First Maple Bank, mortgage account, $5,600 month. Harper stared at the screen. 2 years of payments, 2 years of self-denial. A condo she didn't buy, vacations she didn't take, savings she'd postponed, all for a house where she was never truly welcome. She hovered over the button Cancel Automatic Payment. A confirmation box popped up. "Are you sure?" She took a deep breath. "Yes," she whispered, and clicked. Next, she composed an email to the bank explaining that she would no longer be making payments on behalf of others. She wasn't a co-owner of the property and had no legal or emotional reason to continue funding the mortgage. When she hit send, she closed the laptop, stood up, and for the first time in 2 years, felt something shift inside her. It wasn't triumph. It was peace. Because for the first time, she had chosen herself. For the next 2 weeks, there was silence. Her family didn't call or message. They didn't know yet. And Harper didn't tell them. She let the silence speak for itself. Then 3 days before the next payment was due, her phone began to buzz. The first message came from Tiffany. "UTF. The bank just called, no payment received. Are you seriously pulling this crap?" Then one from her father. "Harper, this is unacceptable. You have a responsibility to this family." And finally, one from her mother for the first time since the dinner table showdown. "Sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You're always welcome here, but please call us about the mortgage." Harper read each one. Every word proved they still didn't understand or refused to. She wasn't their safety net anymore, not their silent sponsor, not their fallback plan. And this time she didn't reply, because she didn't have to. Harper's decision to stop making the mortgage payments was like tossing a rock into a seemingly calm lake. The surface shattered and the ripples spread faster and more violently than she had expected. At first there was silence, a suspicious kind of silence, as if her family was waiting for her to change her mind. But when the payment date came and went without a single cent, the messages started rolling in like a storm breaking. Tiffany was first. "This is insane. What are you even trying to prove? Jealous that I'm the one they chose?" Her father was more forceful. "This behavior is unacceptable. You are part of this family. Families don't abandon each other." Then came the sweetly manipulative message from her mother. "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Your father and I still love you, but you really need to call us about the mortgage issue." Harper read each message with dry eyes. Not a single word of apology. Not one mention of the locks or of the text that told her she was no longer trusted. They weren't acknowledging what they'd done. They were just trying to get the money flowing again. When Harper didn't respond, things escalated. Blame and guilt came next, followed by accidentally sent screenshots from family group chats where she was labeled as selfish, unstable, and out of control. Relatives started reaching out. "They're still your parents, Harper. Everyone says you make good money. Why are you being so petty? Family is forever. You should sacrifice." Only one person didn't judge her, Aunt Linda, the only relative who had ever treated her fairly. Her message was simple. "None of this adds up. I'd like to hear from you." Meanwhile, Harper was unraveling. She couldn't sleep. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding. She wasn't hungry. She couldn't focus on work. Every time her phone buzzed, her stomach clenched not from guilt, but from years of suppressed pain now crashing through the walls she'd built to survive. Logan became her anchor. He cooked for her, held her when she cried, and repeated what she needed to hear. You didn't abandon them. They pushed you out. You're just the first to break the cycle. Those words became a lifeline. Harper knew she wasn't weak, she was just paying the price of freedom. And sometimes that price was being cast out by everyone. Until you learn to stand tall on your own. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, after missing 3 more calls from her father and receiving a cryptic message from Tiffany urging her to keep this in the family, Harper realized it was time to bring in a third party, someone outside the emotional storm, someone who dealt in facts and law. She booked a consultation with Rachel Coleman, a family law attorney recommended by her best friend. Rachel's office, tucked inside a modest brick building in South Austin, wasn't flashy, but it radiated calm and competence. In a softly lit room that smelled faintly of cedar, Harper told her story: 2 years of mortgage payments, the changed locks, the fabricated accusation that she was threatening for merely driving past the house. Rachel listened without interruption, jotting down notes with practiced ease. When Harper finally finished, she exhaled slowly. I know this might sound dramatic, Harper said, but I have to ask, can they sue me for stopping the payments? Rachel sat up straight and flipped through the documents Harper had brought. No, she said firmly. You're not listed on the deed. You didn't sign any legal agreement to cover the mortgage. Legally, you have no obligation to keep paying. But they say I promised to help. Temporarily, right? Rachel asked. Harper nodded. Harper pulled out her phone and found the old text exchange with her father. In it, Gregory had written, "Thank you for helping until we get back on our feet. We'll find a way to pay you back." Rachel smiled. Perfect. This message makes it clear your contributions weren't a gift, they were a time-limited offer of support. She leaned forward, her tone calm but confident. You're within your rights to stop completely. They can't sue you, and if they try, they'll lose. Harper felt a weight lift from her chest. Not because she hadn't already suspected the truth, but because someone with expertise had confirmed it without guilt, without emotional manipulation, just clarity. As she stepped out of the office, Harper paused on the front steps and looked out at the fading afternoon light. A breeze caught her hair, whispering through the air like a promise. You're free now from a role no one respected, only expected. The call came from Aunt Linda on a quiet Saturday morning. Harper, the family is holding a meeting tomorrow at my house. Your parents, Tiffany, Kyle, they'll all be there. I think you should come. Harper stared at her phone, feeling like she'd just been summoned to the final round of a battle she never asked to fight, but had been forced to lead. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she called her attorney, Rachel Coleman, and laid out the situation. Rachel wasn't surprised. If you decide to go, don't go alone. And bring documentation. They'll come at you emotionally. You have the facts. That afternoon, Harper gathered everything: bank statements, her father's old text about repaying her, the email confirming the payment cancellation. Logan insisted on going with her. No matter what happens, he said, you're not facing them alone. The next day, they arrived at Aunt Linda's house. 5 cars were already parked out front. The living room air was thick when Harper stepped inside. Every eye turned toward her, not as the ignored daughter, but now as the perceived traitor. Her father stood first, voice strained with forced warmth. Thanks for coming. We all need to talk. Harper took a seat, Logan by her side. I'm here to listen, she said calmly, but I've also got a few things to clarify. And the accusations began. Her parents blamed her for abandoning the family. Tiffany accused her of always playing the victim. Harper stayed quiet, then pulled out a printed copy of the text from her mother. We no longer trust you. She handed it to the family's attorney, Gregory Brandt, who sat awkwardly in the corner. And here she continued, holding up documents as proof of over $130,000 I've paid over the past 2 years. despite never having my name on a single deed. The room went silent. No one could argue with the numbers. No one could deny what was printed in black and white. Her mother finally sobbed. "Are you really going to let the house go?" Harper's reply was quiet but firm. "I'm not letting it go. You locked me out of it." Eventually, Mr. Brandt cleared his throat and spoke. "From a legal standpoint, Harper has no obligation to the house. All prior contributions were voluntary." Harper stood. "I don't want the house. I don't want to fight. I just want to be respected. But if that's too much to ask of this family, I'm ready to walk away." She left the room without waiting for a response. Logan took her hand. Together they stepped into the afternoon sunlight, not victorious, but finally free. Harper didn't leave the family meeting feeling victorious, but she did leave reborn. There were no apologies, no recognition, no closure. And yet she walked away with something far more powerful: the right to choose her own life, untethered from guilt or obligation. Within days, she and Logan moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in North Austin. It wasn't large, but it was filled with light and peace. A kind of peace Harper hadn't known while living under the quiet pressure of her family's expectations. They painted the walls a soft cream. Harper picked out curtains Logan bought houseplants. They hung photos from the park where they'd first held hands. He cooked. She decorated. The smallest details made it feel real. For the first time in her life, Harper had a home that wasn't built on sacrifice. Financially, everything shifted. Without the $5, $600 mortgage burden, she opened a separate savings account just for her future home. The balance grew each week, not because she earned more, but because she'd finally stopped pouring her money into a place that had never truly been hers. At work, her clarity showed. Her latest campaign soared beyond expectations, and one Friday afternoon her boss called her into his office. "We're creating a new position, Director of Digital Brand Strategy," he said, "and we'd like you to take it." Harper was stunned not because she doubted her qualifications, but because for the first time something great was being offered without her having to prove she was worthy of love. It was hers simply because she earned it. That night, Logan brought home champagne and her favorite Thai takeout. They ate on the living room floor, laughter echoing under warm amber light. To Harper, Logan toasted who finally chose herself. "And to a life where we don't have to ask permission to be happy," she replied. From someone who once carried a family on her back just to earn scraps of affection, Harper was now living something new, a life with no invisible chains, no assigned roles, no shadows cast by a chosen child. She didn't need the old house. She didn't need to be accepted again, because now she understood freedom doesn't come from being embraced, it comes from walking away when respect is gone. 2 months after the family confrontation on a quiet afternoon, Harper received an email from an address she had nearly deleted from her contacts, Diane.sullivanemail.com. She'd grown used to her mother's earlier attempts messages filled with half apologies, indirect blame, or veiled guilt trips suggesting she had broken the family. But this time, the subject line was simple: from Mom. Harper opened the email, her chest tightening, and within the first few lines, she knew this one was different. "I don't expect you to respond, but I need to say this. While packing up the old house, I found some of your childhood photos. You were always the one behind the camera, setting the table, wiping up spills. Quiet, thoughtful, and I never truly thanked you for that." The words hit Harper like a soft but sharp blade, not painful but piercing. They reached a part of her she thought had long gone numb. Then came the part she never expected to hear. "I was wrong. Not just about the house. I was wrong about how I treated you your whole life. We loved Tiffany because she needed us. But I never realized that sometimes the strongest child is the one who needs love the most. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know. I see it now. Finally." Harper sat still for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. There was only a quietness that rose inside her like the surface of a calm lake. She didn't rush to respond. She saved the email, didn't delete it, didn't reply. Logan noticed her silence in the kitchen and asked softly, "From her?" Harper nodded. For the first time, she didn't justify anything. She just acknowledged. "That's a start," Logan said. "But not an invitation back," Harper whispered. For the first time, she felt maybe not all of them would be lost forever in denial, and sometimes acknowledgement, even if late, could plant the seed of something real. On an early spring morning, Harper stood by the large window in her new apartment, hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, casting soft patterns on the hardwood floor. Across the room, Logan sat reading the news, occasionally glancing up at her with that familiar, steady gaze. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't extraordinary. But for Harper, this was the new definition of happiness. A year ago, she believed happiness meant being acknowledged by her parents, holding on to family at any cost, even if it meant losing herself. Now she knew happiness began the moment she chose to stand on her own side. She no longer fought to be seen. Instead, she saw herself. No more silencing her feelings. No more playing the martyr. No more being the shadow of a favored sibling. She was Harper, whole, strong, and at peace. After her mother's message of remorse, the family had gone quiet again. But this time, the silence didn't feel threatening. Harper wasn't waiting for an invitation back. She had chosen a different path, one with boundaries, self-respect, and real love. Her career flourished. One of her latest campaigns won a regional award. Logan proposed on the anniversary of the day Harper canceled the mortgage payment, a symbolic reminder that she had finally chosen her life. She said yes without hesitation. They kept the wedding small, simple, and intimate. Aunt Linda was the only family member in attendance, someone who had not only believed her, but stayed when everyone else turned away. There was no presence from her parents, no Tiffany, and Harper didn't feel their absence. She no longer needed validation from those who once undervalued her worth. During her short speech at the reception, Harper said, "I used to think family was something you had to hold on to at all costs, but I've learned that if you have to lose yourself to keep a relationship, it's no longer love, it's obligation. Today, I'm not stepping into a perfect life. I'm continuing a journey of living truthfully beside someone who chose me not for a role, not for duty, but for who I am." As the applause rang out, Harper didn't cry. But something inside her finally settled, closing one chapter and opening another for real.